We all set? I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Woburn Zoning Board of Appeals to order. I would like to remind everyone in the audience that this hearing is being videotaped and audio taped, so please keep that in mind if you decide to approach the rail to address the board. To begin our hearing, I would ask that everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda this evening is the request of Timothy and Sarah Boss, 113 Mishawam Road, seeking a minor modification to a variance that the board granted in November in connection with a fence within the front setback. Is Mr. Boss here? All right, if you could approach.
Hi, so do I have to say my name, or?
Please do.
So my name is Timothy Boss. So I'm just, the minor modification, as I mentioned to Gordon, is listed in the plot plan that I think, do you guys all have copies of that?
I have my copy. Does anybody else?
Okay. So basically, I'm just going back farther than that back right corner. I'm bringing it in more, and the reason for that is because when I was looking at the slope where the double gate would be, it's too much of a incline for a double gate, meaning like you can't really slant a double gate like you can a normal fence panel, and so my dogs would be very likely to be able to get under that, given that it's already 3 inches raised off the ground per the Conservation Commission, and so like having it at that incline would be probably like a little under a foot, so the dogs would be able to get under. So that's why I want to bring it in. So it'll be more visibility as well, just for the record.
Thank you for that explanation, because I was wondering if that had anything to do with you going back to Concom once we had
Yeah, I still have to go
made a
back to them. I
decision.
just wanted to get this straightened out first.
Okay, let me ask, do any members of the board have any questions? Is there anyone in the audience who cares to be heard in connection with this request for a minor modification of the variance that was granted in November? Hearing none. All right, so I'm going to confess, I did not, it's been a while since we've done a minor modification, and you all may need to help me, but my memory is that we adopted a rule for minor modifications in order to determine whether someone would have to go through the whole public hearing process again. So let me ask, is there any discussion or comments that people have on whether the change that is proposed in this plot plan dated November 22nd, 2023, is a minor modification? No discussion. Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think it is a minor modification, if anything, because it's the measurement at the corner actually complies with the front setback. I don't know exactly what the measurement is at the upper corner, right at the edge of the drain easement, but the location of the fence at the lot line, the common lot line with 3 Evangeline Lane complies with the zoning code. So I think it's a minor modification, but I welcome anybody else's input.
No, I agree with you. I was just going to ask, I think, when we talked about this some time ago, wasn't these minor modifications, weren't they going to be determined by the building inspector, or was that for just special permits and not
Honestly,
variances?
I don't remember. But I feel like when the building commissioner has been asked to make certain determinations, I think his view is typically to seek the board's input in any event.
Yeah.
How does the board wish to proceed, unless there's any more discussion?
Make a motion to approve the modification as a minor modification.
Second.
All in favor of the pending motion? Okay, so that passed. And again, it's been a while since I've looked at that rule, but my understanding is that now we can simply modify that variance without requiring the property owner to go through the formal hearing and advertising process, since this is a minor modification to an existing variance. We'll have to prepare a revised decision referencing this current plot plan. I want to make sure that the record references the one that was filed in December 20th, 2023. But, so Mr. Boss, that'll be something that we'll take care of and you'll be notified, okay? All right. The next item on the agenda is the petition of Stephanie Ray, 135 Coachman's Lane, North Andover, in connection with the request for a variance at 41 Independence Drive. We had received a communication on this.
Attorney Salvardi sent a memo yesterday asking for leave of withdrawal without prejudice. I emailed it to everybody on the board.
Let me ask, is there anyone in the audience who came here in connection with the variance request at 41 Independence Drive? If you'd like to approach the rail and say anything, you're welcome to. But just so you're clear, because I don't know if you all understood this, the petitioner has asked to withdraw the request for the variance at 41 Independence Drive. And I know you circulated it. Was that a request without prejudice?
Yes.
Did all the members of the board get that request?
Madam Chair, could you just see in the audience how many people appeared tonight on that? If any.
By my count, it looks like there are 5 people in the audience who at least indicated let me ask you this. If anyone wants to be heard in connection with this request for variance that's now the subject of a request to withdraw, feel free to approach the rail if you like.
Good evening, Mark Lynch, 39 Independence Drive, direct abutter to the right. I had submitted some photos. Will those stay on file, or?
Yeah, those are part of the record. Those have
Okay,
been
and they'll
submitted.
stay when they want to come back?
Yeah, so they're part of this record. If there's ever a new petition or application filed in connection with this property in the future,
Okay.
I don't, so say 5 years from now, there's some new application. I don't think that there's any mechanism by which the board 5 years from now is going to get a copy of the old petition. But if anyone requests it, then we have that. It's part of the record if anyone wants to see it.
Okay, and my other question is, can they do anything with that land right now, like any kind of cleaning or tree removal or anything like that?
My understanding is that a property owner does not need a permit to remove trees. But that's my most rudimentary understanding. If you have any questions, honestly, I think that is, to be 100% sure, you should ask that question of the building commissioner.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome.
Madam Chair, is there anybody, I don't want to necessarily hear from them, but is there anybody else in the audience that came down concerning this issue? Do you know, sir, whether there's anybody else here that's interested in this? I don't want to hear from them. I just want to know whether they went to the trouble of coming down.
Well, we did get the, Gordon sent me an email, and I passed it on to my neighbors, and
So
we just wanted to...
how many people actually are here with regards to this?
Just 3 of us total.
3 or 4?
Yeah, we're the direct abutters. I'm on the right of the property, they're on the left of the property.
Well, the reason I'm asking you, Madam Chair, I think I'm going to vote against the Well, I think I make a motion to strike the without prejudice. Or, I don't know, I guess the motion would probably be to grant the motion, so I'll just vote again. But I'm voting against the motion because these people went to trouble coming down here, it seems to me that somehow the petitioner should have handled it in such a way as that these people were put on notice that they didn't have to appear here because the thing is withdrawn. Doesn't seem fair to me.
Can I say something? I've been in pretty much weekly contact with Mr. Lynch. He's been asking me for any updates pretty consistently once a week. When I got the notice yesterday, I sent it to him, and I asked him to reach out to Ms. Ojeda, who was the other.
Oh, you did the right.
I didn't tell them not to. I don't ever tell anybody not to show. I just leave it, this is what's going to happen, likely going to happen, so I don't advise them whether to show up or not.
Well,
But
do you have any information as to why the petitioner waited till yesterday to inform you he was going to withdraw?
I can't comment on that. I can't speculate.
Well, you have no information, I take it.
I didn't hear from the attorney until yesterday. That's,
You heard, the only way you heard was by
he dropped
phone.
off of the piece of paper that said he's requesting a leave of withdrawal without prejudice.
This strikes me as something really unfair about the fact that they sent a letter in at the 11th hour, and that's all I have.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
That's it.
All right, thank you for your time. How does the board wish to proceed in connection with the request for leave to withdraw?
I'll make a motion to leave to withdraw without prejudice.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of the pending motion? Opposed?
Opposed.
All right, so that passed 4-1. The next item on our agenda is the petition of Dritan and Maria Zeko, 52 Montvale Ave, in connection with the special permit request to put an addition on a pre-existing non-conforming two-family home. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. For the record, Attorney James Giuliano on behalf of Dritan and Maria Zacho, who are the homeowners. I was thinking about this procedurally. I don't know if it makes sense. I was going to go through sort of the existing conditions, and then there's a few issues that I think we have to address. I would say issues, but bullet points that I think are important for this application, so I can go through them, or I can just go through the presentation and then just ask questions in general afterwards. But I just wanted to make it as organized as possible, because I know that.
I leave it to your discretion.
Okay,
as to
so
how you-
so we'll basically just go over each item, just for continuity, and then we can step back and see if there's any questions regarding those issues. But as you know, this property is a two-family located on 52 Montville Ave. We are asking for a special permit under Section 7.3 of the Woburn zoning ordinance of 1985 for an addition of a story on the existing footprint per the submitted plans to you. The existing conditions, as I mentioned, is a two-family located at 52 Montville. It's on the corner of Everett Street, and it was built in 1947. It sits on an R2 district, but this is what they call a split lot, so there is downtown business that falls in the rear portion of this lot as well, which is one of the issues that we'll address shortly. So this property does conform with the downtown business district, but it is non-conforming in the R2 district for the following three reasons. One, it has 10,195 square feet of land where 15,000 is required. It has 51.80 feet of frontage where 80 feet is required, and it has 16 feet of side setback where 20 feet is required. And again, just keep in mind, this property was built in 1947 as a two-family. With regards to the split lot, I did submit a memo from City Solicitor dated January 13th of 2013. Although this fact pattern is a little bit different, I think it kind of discusses the issue of the split lot and how this doesn't apply, meaning in that situation, they were taking a knockdown, they were knocking down a single family and trying to create a non-single family use. And I can certainly go over the bits and pieces of the case law, but in short, it just basically is not our situation, meaning in this case that City Solicitor Doucette mentions, we are keeping the existing property, not changing the use, and the use is completely in an active area. So again, one of the case laws that came about of this memorandum was the Tobias case, and basically it said there's an active use and a passive use. An active use is basically what the main use of that zoning district is and what you're trying to use it for, and a passive use is sort of like an ancillary use. Again, not to bore you or kind of muddy the waters, none of this is relevant to our case. We are keeping the use. The use is allowed. We're just asking for a special permit in that zoning district. So I'll certainly answer questions afterwards and elaborate if necessary, not a problem at all. Again, with the history of the house and sort of the case law and the zoning ordinances, I think it's important. The attic area is obviously something that we're adding on. We're going up. We're proposing to go up a third story with an attic area, and I think that deserves some discussion. Back in 1934, the language of 2.5 stories came about. That's when the first mention of 2.5 stories was mentioned. In 1963 zoning ordinance, the 35-foot height restriction was introduced. And it actually specified that it was to be 35 feet or 2.5 stories, not and, two. Excuse me. The 2.5 stories came before the regulations of 3 families, which just goes and implies that this is sort of unrelated to 2.5 stories and 3 families and 3 stories. They're interrelated, being integrated in the zoning ordinance at different times in time. So basically, the memorandum, again, that I mentioned comes from Ellen, which we'll go over in a bit. This case is riddled with memos, so I apologize, but it goes into the definition of stories as well. So the definition of a story is very important in this case. So the relevant pieces of the definition is that there is no definition of a half story in our Woburn zoning ordinance at all. I know it's mentioned in the table of dimensional requirements and regulations, but it is not defined at all, a half a story. So we have to go with what a story is. Again, a story is defined from basically the finished floor to the finished ceiling or roof line. That's all we know. So Section 6.1, again, provides these restrictions as 35 feet or 2.5 stories, not and. So we don't need 2.5 stories and 35 feet. We just need or. And from the plans, as you can see, we are still going to be below that 35-foot maximum requirement. We're not proposing to go above that. Otherwise, we would argue a variance would be triggered in this case, which we're not seeking. In Ellen's memorandum as well, she mentions dormers, which for her sake, she said they're irrelevant. A dormer is irrelevant to whether it's a 3-story or not. We just have to go by the definition of a 3-story. So again, in this case, what we're going to argue is we're under the 35-foot minimum requirement. We don't need to adhere to the 2.5 stories. So yes, we are creating a third story, but it is not restricted in our zoning ordinance of 1985 at all, because it's not defined and it's not restricted elsewhere. So again, although the previous versions, it did mention the half story, it was relinquished and not mentioned in the 1985 version, which is clearly what we're going after and going on as of today. The previous versions, just to give you a little bit insight, they did mention the half story, which was a sloping roof, not being more than 2/3 of the size of the lower floor. And then it excluded, 4 feet back in 1934 and 3 feet in 1963, just a little history. Again, not relevant here because it was not carried forward intentionally in the 1985 zoning ordinance. So again, regardless of what the board feels, as if it's a 2.5 or 3-story, we don't think it's restricted under the zoning ordinance. When we look to definitions that are not mentioned, I like to go to the building code, okay? That's sort of like the next in line. So there is no definition of a half a story in the building code as well, the Massachusetts Building Code, that obviously Commissioner Quinn uses and builders use. So there's really nothing to go off of what this half a story means, even if we were trying to interpret that at all past the Woburn zoning ordinance. Again, we mentioned in the plans, we are creating an attic as well, and the attic is not a story. It's not habitable space. The building code, again, so going back, attic is not referenced in our zoning ordinance of 1985. So when that happens, again, we go back to the building code, which basically says that an attic is the lower floor to the ridge, or obviously a ceiling, kind of what a story is. And an attic is not considered a story under the building code. So that's the attic situation. So again, I will stop and see if anybody has any questions regarding the split lot and the attic. The next one I'm going to address is the basement, because obviously there's questions of stories in this specific situation that I want to address. So
I have a question.
yes.
So I'm looking at the flow design architecture proposed floor plan. I'm looking at the proposed second floor plan. And then the second image is the proposed attic floor plan. And I don't have,
So you're on, I'm sorry, Madam Chairwoman, you're on the proposed design, correct?
right.
Okay.
And the numbers aren't, the pages aren't numbered, so I can't tell you.
That's okay.
Turn to page 6.
That's okay.
But basically, my question is, so is your position is because you call it an attic, it therefore can't be a story?
No, because an attic is not a story as defined.
Right.
It's very clear. So it's not a story in this specific situation, correct?
Because you say so?
Because the building.
Because you're calling it an attic, even though it's got 2 bedrooms, a laundry room, a bathroom, and
No,
a
I'm sorry.
walk-in closet.
No, I'm sorry. So the third story is a third story. So I think, and this is probably just looking at the plan. So where you see the proposed, let's use the same page. No, that is a third floor. I'm not calling that an attic.
Well, but it's labeled as proposed attic floor plan, and there's nothing in here that shows me what the real attic is. So is
Yep.
there gonna be the pull-down stairway that you can crawl up, and you're gonna be in
Correct.
an attic, and you're gonna be under the roof, and you can only stand up straight in the middle of the attic, otherwise you're gonna hit your head on the roof?
Correct. Yeah. So if you look at the proposed design, the page that's labeled proposed design, and go to the second page after that, so it goes proposed floor plan, and then it goes proposed facades.
Oh, I thought that's what I was just looking at.
Yeah. So the new area that is going to be constructed is shaded. So the new area is going to include a third story, we'll call it a third story, and then an attic area on top of that. So, correct.
I'm sorry, so you want me to look at the proposed side elevation that is that?
I think,
wanna make
yeah,
sure I'm looking at what you're.
I think either elevation shows it, but yeah, I think the first page where it shows the proposed front elevation and proposed side elevation are probably the clearest.
Okay. And so the shaded area contains both the,
So there'll be the area where the window is. So if we're looking at the side elevation where that window is showing, there's a dash that says, that's basically showing, so the attic's going to be converted into existing space, and there's going to be a new attic.
all right.
Oh, you're
so
gonna, I'm sorry, you're gonna raise it up? Sorry, okay, I didn't know that. Oh, that's even, so Maria just mentioned, so we're actually not doing an attic, we're doing a ridge beam, so it'll be, those ceilings will be elevated in that third story. So there's no attic space or anything that's going to be used for storage in that.
Okay, so it's going to, all right, so.
Yeah.
But, so is there anything in here that tells me how high what the finished interior is going to be from the floor to the peak of the roof?
So, yeah, so if you look at the new floor will be at elevation 18 feet, and then it looks like the new roof, again, the roof line, the top of the line is at 34. So obviously you take some for framing on both ends. So whatever that delta is, that's pretty much the height of the ceiling. So that's the livable space. So you're putting two.
Attorney, can I
two bed-
interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
I just want to shut the doors in the back. Thank you, Jeff.
So, and I did fail to mention, I think 2 bedrooms are going up. So there'll be 2 additional bedrooms. This house, so it's a 2-family.
Sorry, because
Go ahead,
the
sorry.
clerk can't take notes.
Oh, sorry.
Unless he's sitting
Yep.
down, so.
2 additional bedrooms.
That's what we're proposing on that third story, correct?
Thank you.
Right, and that's what's shown on the page
Correct.
that I asked you to comment on that says proposed attic floor plan.
Yeah, I think that is, I'm gonna guess that's an error because my client's telling me there's no attic space, so maybe that was a miscommunication.
Well, right,
with
because
me.
I was going to say, then
Yeah.
where's the plan for the attic if you're telling me, no, whatever.
Yeah,
So there is not going to be another,
yeah, I think what happened was there's an existing attic, and maybe there was when he transcribed to the proposed, I think it probably just got, but we'll fix that, if agreeable, so.
all right, so I interrupted you.
No, it's okay.
You were
I think-
you wanted to go on.
No, I think I'm taking questions regarding those issues now, and then I'll move on to the last issue.
You going to talk about the basement next?
I sure am.
Yeah, I have questions about that.
I know, I figure you would. So without any further questions, I will mention the basement. So the basement, and again, we did some rough grades, but Ed Farrell is going out there to do some spot grades, hopefully this week or next. It's a little icy. I don't want to break his neck, and I'm sure he doesn't want to either. So, just kind of going through the application, I think it is probably warranted and going to be asked for by the board, so we're happy to do that. I think basically once the numbers are in, it'll solidify and confirm that the basement area is going to be a cellar and is not going to be considered a story. And here's why I can kind of figure that out. We kind of did some rough math. The front of the house is pretty much at -1. The slab is about -8. So that gives about an 8-foot variation, but all the front and it's one of the sides is completely pretty much, the grade is at the level of the basement, meaning there's no walkouts. We just have that one side where there's a garage bay and a window that what you guys probably saw on the plan, and then there's a walkout in back.
All right, but that doesn't the new, I couldn't tell from the picture. Yeah, so I couldn't tell from the photos because there's a pickup truck kind of parked in front.
Oh.
And so what you're saying is, so, because there's a row of 3 window on the first floor and the second floor, and I couldn't tell if it was a door or a window in the basement.
So.
You're telling me it's a window?
Yep. So if we look at the proposed facades again to the second to last page before the whole 3D rendering, you'll see a proposed rear facade. And that proposed rear facade shows exactly what is there and basically again, everything's going to remain except for that third story that's proposed. So the back part of that property has a window and a walkout door. So it's at grade.
Yeah.
But if you look to the left, that's all fill. There's nothing that's exposed on the left side of that rendering.
Can I ask a question then?
Sure.
So yeah, I had seen the full-size door
Mhm.
and the window in the back of the house, which is at grade.
Mhm.
But now the proposed rear facade doesn't show a window where there is a window in the existing structure, the one that the pickup truck is parked in front of in one of the photos.
So, let me just-
I'm looking at the color photos that you submitted.
Correct, yep.
I know they're small.
That's okay.
But, so in two of the, so the photo that shows the garage door,
Yes.
again, I couldn't tell, so if to the left of the garage door, it was either a window or a door, I couldn't tell which. And you can see it in another photo, where the pickup truck is blocking it, but that window is on the, right-hand side of the
Garage
house.
bay.
But your proposed rear facade doesn't show a window there anymore. It shows the window on the other side.
Yeah, so everything's maintaining the same exact side. So if you look at, sorry, we should have numbered these, but, hold on. Oh, okay. So if you go to sheet FD 02.2, I guess we can use numbers.
Okay, got it.
So if you're looking at the house, this is the left side of the house. So it slopes down, you have a window, and you have a garage bay. Okay, and then
Wait, I'm sorry, so I'm looking at
uh,
FD 02, oh, wait, I'm
Yep.
looking at the wrong page.
that's okay, no, it's,
Okay, now I'm at the right
yep.
page.
So if we'll kind of do a virtual tour together, I guess. If you're looking at the house, we're going to go around the left side of the house. We're going to walk down where the chimney is.
Yep,
and we're gonna see this, you're gonna see a small little casement window, and you're
Yep.
gonna see a garage bay. That is staying as it's shown on the proposed plan.
Correct.
We walk around to the back, we flip the sheet to sheet FD 02-3,
Yep.
or .3. We see the rear facade where there is I think what you're seeing is he missed, in the picture, he missed a small window, I
That's
think.
what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there's a window in the pictures.
Yeah, he missed a small window. It's very small, but we're not changing that. That's gonna, that
Right.
rear facade's
And
gonna
the
stay.
door that's there now, again, I thought on one of the pictures, it kind of looked like there was already a door going into the basement.
Yes.
But I couldn't tell.
Yes,
So the door that's shown on FD 02.3.
yep, that will
So
stay,
the same door is going to stay there.
yep,
And is the window to the
left.
left of the door, is that a new window?
That's staying. So it's on the existing and proposed. That's all staying.
All right, see, I can't even see that little window in these pictures.
Yeah, the angles are probably, but
Okay.
they're small. They are small
Okay,
windows.
all right, thank
So
you.
we're gonna get, I don't even know if you can get up there, but there's probably a 7 or 8 foot increase. So there's a retaining wall, I believe, right in the back? Yeah, this is a retaining wall. We're gonna go around the right side of the house, I guess. We're gonna turn the corner, go back towards the front. That is all filled, so that grade is pretty much
That side's all at grade.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And then we go to the front, and that's, again, not changing.
Yep.
And we go to the front, the proposed front of the house is at grade, and the existing is at grade, and the proposed is at grade, so that's not changing. So we're just basically not changing any grades, we're just going up a story with this property. So no site work at all. But again, as you can see, just from doing math and taking the ordinance, the front offsets the back, and the left side offsets the right side, so you're gonna see once.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think you're gonna see once the numbers come in that we're within that ordinance, so it will not be considered a story. But we'll get those spot grades, I think they're warranted, and we certainly will get those.
So I've got a couple of questions. Forgive me if you already touched on it.
No,
I was
don't.
trying to go through some paperwork.
It's a lot, no, that's fine.
No, so when it comes to the basement, it's just basically, is the ceiling above or at more than 6'6" from the average, how was it stated in here?
Yeah, it will not.
Average ground elevation, right?
And we're
If it's-
and we're arguing it's not going to be once the spot grades come in, correct?
Okay.
Otherwise, we have a different,
Therefore, it's not a story.
that's correct.
Right, I
Otherwise,
agree
we have
with
a,
you.
yeah.
And I think I voted that way in the last time, I mean, with the city solicitor's memorandum from a few years ago. And then the other one, I guess in layman's terms, you're building out the attic is basically all you're doing, because as far as I can see, because it kind of relates to the dormer, where she says in her memorandum, is my opinion, whether or not the dormers create a third full story is irrelevant, as long as the dwelling does not exceed 35 feet, and I think that's what you're doing here, correct?
Exactly correct,
Layman's terms.
exactly correct.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
But again, just on that, I mean, she says that, and I think I mentioned it too, that it should be overhauled, right? Brought this to the attention of the planning director
I think that was,
by a substantial review and revision.
yeah, I think
I
she was
think I
referring to that
mentioned
2.5 story, you're correct, yeah.
And you had the dormers as well on, over by Bow Street there on Hilltop. You had
Well, that was- I
something
was-
going up.
I was keeping my mouth shut, but if you remember correctly, that was the one where we discussed the variance modification, I think the special permit modification where
yeah,
that was the one.
and there were some issues with the attic on that one.
Well, I didn't build it, Madam Chairman,
any
I'm
event.
sorry. I will
So,
pass it on.
The existing roof, what's the height of the existing roof?
The existing roof is, I believe it's, let me just go back, I don't want to misquote
I'm
myself.
looking at F202.2.
Yep. I want to say it's probably about at 25 or so. I can get that because it's going to be the average, but I can get that
Right, because this shows, one shows existing height
I want to say, yeah, again, I'm not,
8, if I, and again, these are really small for me to read, just so you know, these plans that are on 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. So they're supposed to be bigger plans to make it easier for people like me to read these little tiny numbers. I'm just sharing that with you. So this page shows existing height of either, again, I think it says
I want to say, yeah, it's around 26
I
feet at
tell.
the,
And then the other one says existing roof, 27. But in any event, the roof's getting raised, so you're not just converting the existing attic, it's getting bumped up, right?
that's correct.
Okay. So now I want to go to table 6.1. So the table of dimensional regulations. So I don't see the word "or" on this table.
There, yeah, well, there's no, I think as Ellen mentioned, the city solicitor, it just says 2.5, it just doesn't say, it says 35 feet. So what she's saying is that there's no definition of it. So you're inserting a number in a table, but not defining it, rendering that number, you know, I would argue sort of useless, because how do we meet a requirement that's not defined under the ordinance or even under the building code? I think that's, you know, that's a lot of onus on somebody to interpret.
I understand the argument, but but all of these are all requirements. I don't think you get to pick which ones you comply with, right? I don't see the word "or," and I'm sure that just as easily as I could come up with an example of a house that is 35 feet high, but doesn't even have 2.5 stories. Maybe it's only 2 stories because they really love high ceilings. I think the story, the reference to the story, or stories, in the table of dimensional regulations has to mean something. It's not invisible. It doesn't, like, it hasn't been erased from the table of dimensional regulations. And I'm not so sure that as long as a structure does not exceed 35 feet, that means you can put however many stories you want in it, right? What if someone builds a 35-foot high story, and I think maybe you only have to have 8-foot ceiling, I don't know what the building code is, right? But maybe you only need 8-foot ceilings, and, right? So, gee, that's over 4 stories. You got 4 really small stories, that's crazy. Who would do that? Bless you. But, right, but it's not allowed, I think, under the table of dimensional regulations.
So if I may rebut and sort of answer.
Absolutely.
So my interpretation is that, again, I think, and this was at least my interpretation, corroborated with the city solicitors when we had a discussion and her memorandum, is that, again, what's the difference between a 2.5-story versus a 3-story if it meets the definition of a story? Now, that being said, that's all well and good if we're trying to comply with a 2.5-story house. Let's just, for argumentative sake, say, all right, we got to go for a 2.5-story house. I don't know what that means without a definition, and
Have you done any research?
I have.
Is there any case law?
There's no case law that I know. There's, the only thing that we have, obviously, is the prior Woburn zoning ordinance. Now, lost my train of thought. Now, and again, I'll make another argument for it, but I think I know what I was going to say. I think what happened was, based on city solicitor's comments, is that we've had this in our prior zoning ordinances that sort of just carried on and got put in the new 1985 with this image of that we're going to carry this forward, and yet we failed to define what a half a story is, where the previous ones were defined. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So that creates intent, meaning if we had a prior zoning ordinance that had a definition of a 2.5-story, we intentionally, obviously, didn't just forget it. We intentionally decided that we're going to omit this and not define it because we don't want it in there. Now, again, drafting errors happen. So, and I think Ellen makes that point that we just sort of, in our heads, had this going on for 30, 40 years, and then we just got rid of it in the 1985 zoning ordinance, and we failed to define it. That's number one.
What if somebody made a mistake in 1985? What if there was no intent, but someone just screwed up and omitted the
yeah.
definition?
It could have very well happened, but again, we can't ask somebody to meet something that's not existing.
Well, I'm not so sure, because there's other examples of things that aren't defined in our zoning ordinance that we talk about, you know, it's not uncommon for me to go look for something and go, oh, it's not defined. Well,
Yeah.
we still have to figure it out and make a decision, even if there's no decision. Strike that, even if there's no definition.
Agree, and I think that's where the board, you know, has its deference, and I think something like that obviously is in front of the board for that. I'm arguing the opposite, obviously.
Oh, understood, and I wanted you to be aware of the building commissioner's view, and I appreciate the fact that the applicant is going to get the measurements, because without those measurements, no one knows whether it's so I look at the existing basement and I go, oh, full-size garage door, full-size
Yep.
door, walk in. To me, that looks like it's a story, because, you know, these two sides of the house are, you know, and it's been excavated,
Yep.
and like, right?
Yeah.
At least on the side where the garage is, that was an intentional decision, I assume, to excavate that away from the house so that there could be, you know, a garage.
I think you're right. I think, like I said, we have calculations based on what we have for our architectural renderings, but I think a spot grade is necessary. And again, we're confident that once those come in, it'll be clear, so.
All right, let me just ask, is there anyone in the audience who cares to be heard in connection with this petition for a special permit at 52 Montvale Ave? I have another question for you.
Sure.
Actually unrelated to the, what we've been discussing. You indicated the property doesn't comply because it has 80 feet of frontage on Montvale Ave, but it's got over 123 feet of frontage on Everett Street.
Correct.
And I've posed this question, and it's always been kind of like a hypothetical, we've never addressed it. But it seems to me that if you have over 100 feet of frontage on Everett Street, that the property arguably complies with the frontage requirement. And I don't know if there's any requirement that a corner lot must have at least 100 square feet of frontage on each of the street frontages.
No, yeah, so if I may interject, so you're right. So the requirement under the zoning ordinance is that obviously you have to comply with 2 front setbacks if you're on a corner lot. But in this specific case, you're right, I did think about that, because what we would have to do is we would have to do a deed restriction. You've probably seen a deed restriction saying, hey, we're arguing frontages on Everett Street. The only issue I had with that is I don't know how that's going to comply with, I don't think it will be affected by the downtown business zoning district, because again, well, the problem is yeah, it would, because this is not, a single family is not allowed in the business district. That's the issue. So I don't know if that would.
Two-family?
This is a 2-family, yeah, just a standalone 2-family.
All right, but I think you just said a single family's not.
I'm sorry, sorry,
No worries.
everyone. So it's a 2-family. So that is not allowed, that's not permitted under table 6.1. So I don't know if that has to come into play, so.
All right, well, and I don't either, I literally just wanted to have that discussion with
Yep.
you about the street frontage, but my sense, so the structure itself, I mean, the single-family home is not located in the BD zone. The structure is located
Correct.
in the R2 zone.
The 2-family, yes.
Yeah, so, I don't know, and I don't rely on me, because I haven't researched that, but
yeah,
it seems to me like,
The only problem, Madam Chairwoman, I don't want to run into is that now we're creating a non-conforming use if we sort of allude to the fact that we're putting a non-permitted structure in a zoning district, or I guess, again, goes back to Ellen's memorandum where, active and passive uses, I don't know how that would come into play. I could look into it. I mean, it just, obviously, I don't think it's,
I don't want
Game
to
changer,
overcomplicate it either, but
Yeah.
whatever, it's here, it's.
if I have some time, maybe it'd be good to look into, but I like it. I
All
like
right,
the,
so let me ask, is there any other questions or discussion?
Just a question for the chair. In other words, the petitioner decided to apply for a special permit. If he wanted to accomplish the same thing, he could have applied, and these issues that the chair's been raising, that could have been, he would have had to apply for a variance. Is that-
I honestly don't know, I wasn't asking the question because I wanted to raise the variance issue. So the short answer is, I don't know.
But I mean, the variance would be available as a remedy for this whole thing. Not that he'd necessarily get the variance, but isn't a variance a possible remedy to what the petitioner is seeking?
I don't think the board could issue a use variance. It's been forever since I've looked at that, but that's my reaction.
if I may interject, I can actually
Are we
answer that.
dealing in dimensions?
Mr. Robinson, I can actually answer that for you. So, and it is in City Solicitor's memorandum as well, but the reason why, well, let me just say, we're not asking for a variance or even coming close to a variance because we're not creating a new nonconformity. We're arguing that this is allowed within the zoning ordinance. But you're right, let's say my application was to go up 36 feet, then I need a variance. It's a separate animal, and that's a separate result, hopefully, so we're not even, we don't want to, go down the road of a variance, but
I mean, the use that you're not asking that the use be changed.
correct,
And the existing use is two-family, and that's allowed, correct?
correct. Yeah, it's just,
Use isn't an issue, other than, I suppose, involving the question of dimensions, insofar as it applies to, there may be a different dimensional requirements for different uses. But in other words, if the special permit, I guess what I was getting at was that if the chair made a reasonable argument that the special permit should be denied, you could come back and apply for variance, I would think. I don't know.
Yeah, and I haven't, I spent when I reread this decision, I have my notes on here. The city solicitor does make reference to note 2, section 6.1 that talks about that. For each foot in height of a structure over 2.5 stories, or 35 feet, so the "or" is in the note.
so it does show up in the, okay.
A foot of side and rear setback is required in addition to the minimum requirements shown on the table. So how do I know what a foot of height is over 2.5 stories? Because I don't know, and it's kind of irrelevant for our purposes, but it seems to me that note is, if the ZBA is going to grant a height variance, they better make very sure that that structure is even set further back from the rear setbacks.
Right,
We had a case years ago where, kind of somewhat similar, where it was a house built into a hill, and the petitioners wanted to, expand the attic. I don't remember if there were dormers or not. And there were, I don't know, a number of neighbors who were really concerned at the height of this structure, and that it was going to be looming over them, and that people could look down into their homes and everything. I don't remember the address, but I remember talking about the height and people's concerns about it. But in any event, we digress. It seems like you want to get some more information to share with the board.
Yeah, so I'm going to request a continuance, Madam Chairwoman, if I may. I just want to clarify, too, I want to get you, I have 4 things here, and correct me if I missed something. I will blow up the plans for the next meeting, so you have those. We're going to show the roof line proposed, so you can see the existing height in black and white. We're going to get those spot grades, obviously, for the basement, that's important. And we'll show the new, I guess, the new 3rd story showing that ridge beam, meaning with the cathedral ceiling and
All
not
right,
showing an
And if
attic.
you have to correct the labeling of
Yep.
the 3rd floor from attic, and then if the existing, because I don't think the existing depictions are accurate, they don't show, strike that. Then it's the proposed don't show the windows, or the window. Yeah, I'm all confused now, but something's wrong with the
I think
plan.
that, I think the proposed and existing do not show that one window in the back that's to the, there's one to the right of the door
Correct.
as well.
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
When, the frontage, I remember we had that conversation regarding Main Street and True Place. They were doing a, right on the corner there. It was Attorney Tabby, and there was a discussion back and forth on a special permit, and that was a discussion, well, where's the frontage, you know, because it was on the corner lot.
Oh, and so, yeah, and it's whenever, and so they, and the plans show the curves, you know, they have the segments, and they measure each section of the curve, you know, separately and add them all up. But what specifically?
Well, I remember the conversation that, you know, that you had said, that you reminded me of, that, you know, it doesn't, which one is the frontage, and how do you calculate the frontage
Yeah.
on a
Right, well,
corner
there's
lot?
the definition about the street frontage is either the shortest or the longest.
Short, correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you throw 2 uses, 2 use districts in here as a, curveball, and you
Very
kind of.
interesting.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How does the board wish to proceed in the request for a continuance?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? If that passes, we should identify the date of our next hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, that's what it looks like. All right, so this matter will be continued to the 21st? Does 21st work for everyone? Okay. All right, so, it would be helpful if whatever you get from the surveyor, if it comes in early enough so that we're not,
I'm going to try to get those
Sitting at
next
the-
week. I know enough time is
all right, thank you.
appreciated, so, yep, of course.
All right.
Thank you so much,
very
everyone. I appreciate it.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the December 20th meeting. I had reviewed these, I reviewed a draft and sent back a couple red line comments that now I can't remember what they were, but I want to know if anyone else has any comments, edits, or corrections.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
All in favor? All right, that passed. And the last item on our agenda is, actually, next to last, discussion of ZBA application requirements. This is a matter that we've had on our agenda for several months. And I want to thank Member Ryan because he had put in an incredible amount of effort in making a diagram. I'm not sure how to, a diagram or a schematic, but that it's kind of like a really good cheat sheet, I think both for board members and potentially for applicants, that highlights the, it gives a summary of the table 6.1, which we just spent so much time discussing. And the intent is to kind of help give guidance to applicants about, what it means in real life to be asking for relief from the front setback or the side setback, things of that nature. And it includes a reference to corner lot. So the only edit that I had made to the diagram, and I apologize, I thought I had printed this in color, but I didn't. I printed it in black and white. But I had I had put in the reference to note, above the table, it says note, corner lots have 2 front yards and front setback from each street frontage, or, basically, I just wanted to call out the fact that corner, and I'm not, and it's actually, that's horrible, the way I phrased it, but I was doing that at 5:45, I wanted to edit this last one. But I think it's a good idea to give it to applicants. They may or may not find it useful, but I would bet there's some that would find it useful, because it's gonna be a lot easier for them to look at that one page than to try to find table 6.1 in the zoning ordinance and figure out that way. More substantively, if you turn to the second page of what was just handed out.
So before you move on,
Sure.
that first page, that's sort of totally informational. It's not, and it doesn't, everything that's on there is information that exists in the zoning ordinance, and it's reduced.
Well, the table comes right, it's table 6.1.
Oh.
And it provides, again, the reference for sheds for the accessory building, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful, but, query whether the petitioners will be able to, for the diagram to make sense to the grid, you'd have to match the two up. I question myself whether I'm capable of doing that myself, let alone.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but I think it's a concise way of communicating information, and it's gonna be up to them to decide, they can throw it away if they wanna throw it away, or not. But I think it's a good idea, and I think we should share it with applicants. And I don't know that we actually need to make a decision on it this evening, but I at least wanted to, share my thoughts and frankly, respect the process that Member Ryan had started. So that the second page is something, and this may not be a good idea, but when we got a land court decision upholding our denial of a request to install a fence higher than 3 feet in the front yard on Green Street, I think it was. We got a copy of Judge Foster's actual, like the equivalent of a verdict slip that he went through, and the questions were all on the legal standards, and here's the burden of proof, and what did they meet the burden of proof as to all of these elements to show that they're entitled to a variance. And I think Member Parrish thought, wow, that's like really, boy, he did that all in like one page. That's a great tool. And so I tried to convert that into a tool, and I'm not sure if this is something that we would use as a form and have people fill out, because people don't seem to like to fill out the forms, but at least it's something that,
The city solicitor wanted me to point out that was actually, she authored the checklist and the judge just checked it, so.
well, right, that's
It was her
awesome.
idea.
Yeah, but that's what a verdict slip
I
is. That's
know.
what a jury does.
No, I know, I just, she
Right.
was, when I told her, the board thought that was a good idea, she's like, well, I wrote that.
Yeah, okay, well, maybe I should have asked her to I should have just asked her to convert it to a
No.
form.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. What did
No,
you say?
there was the city, the checklist that the judge actually the judge just did the check marks. It was the city solicitor that came up with the list. When I mentioned it to her, she's like, hey, I wrote that, that was me. I'm like, okay, I'll mention that
Yep.
when it comes up.
Thanks for sharing.
She wanted credit.
Yep.
Well, she didn't want credit, but
City
she deserves
Her
credit.
work product,
Yes.
yes.
Did the city solicitor see this?
No, I just finished it literally 10 minutes before I showed up
She
here.
has seen this. She has not seen this because the chair just submitted these.
Yep.
But she has seen this.
So I converted the verdict slip, essentially, to this form. And again, it's something that it's funny, because we don't often, every once in a while, Member Robertson would say, like, it's your burden of proof, you're the one who's supposed to be, like, we're not supposed to go find this evidence, and you're supposed to present it to us. And so, that's what this summary does, it tells the petitioners what they're supposed to prove. So in order for us to grant a variance, we need to make certain findings, and it is up to the petitioner to present that evidence. And having this in advance, I think, is a lot more helpful to the average homeowner than coming to a hearing and having me grab this and read this dry, arcane, piece of the statute to them, which it's not helpful to the petitioners, because it's too late in the process for me to be telling them, oh, here's the standard of proof, and what's your hardship?
So, Madam Chair, are you proposing that these additional, this checklist, if you will, do you want that incorporated into the existing filing guidelines?
So I think so
Or do you want
that-
a separate page?
I don't know, that's why I'd welcome because I don't want, I'd also welcome Mr. Vincent, probably you more than anybody else, because you're the one who is helping people when they're filling these forms. So I don't want to create, like a 7-page form just for the sake of having a 7-page form. I would like that form to be as short and efficient as possible. And so the existing form that you had already revised, and I liked the revisions that you did, because it's much easier on the eyes, the font is better, the spacing is better, and it already has some of the section from the statute. This, I think, breaks it down into like smaller bite-sized pieces, that's gonna be easier for someone to at least okay, I need to be prepared for, this, they're gonna ask me about that. I just think it's more helpful to break it down into smaller pieces. But if you guys think it's gonna be overwhelming to people, or it's not gonna be useful, then I don't need to include it, it's.
It should fit pretty easily on both petition pages, right? Doesn't that seem the logical place for it to go?
Yeah, and I don't have the, I did not bring the,
That page?
Yeah.
I don't think I have the pages that
I
you
have,
already
I have
did.
copies of the ones that Jack did, which is phenomenally well done, by the way.
Right.
It's a vast improvement.
Yeah, it is a vast improvement. And then, so I figured since I was doing it for the variance, I created one for the special permit, but honestly, I haven't even proofread this. And just as obviously, I would love to have the city solicitors input on changing the form if we decide to incorporate these. So again, I'm not looking for a decision or guidance. It's great if you have feedback. I know it's kind of last minute. I literally gave it to you right before the meeting.
Do you want my feedback?
Absolutely.
So when somebody comes in, they're usually not upset, but they're concerned because the building department has just told them that they live on a corner, and there's things they don't understand, which they shouldn't understand, because they're laymen and they don't understand why they have a corner lot and why, and they're upset because somebody's just told them they can't have a 6-foot fence and they can only have a 3-foot fence.
They have to come pay money.
Right, and they have to come pay money, and I have my spiel that usually lasts somewhere between 5 to 7 minutes, and I can tell when their eyes glaze over.
Yep.
And it's usually right about the time I get to the hardship for the variance.
Yeah.
And if you've noticed, people do come in here now a little bit more prepared, they understand what that is, and I have a copy of the statute that I hand to them, and I have highlighted soil conditions, topography, shape of the land. Mr. Boss, as you could tell, was very prepared with an answer to that. To have something like this, I think, on a piece of paper that they can go back and look at and say later on and say, oh, that's what he was talking about. Because I'm telling them, that they have to go up to the assessor's office and get
Yeah.
an abutters list. I'm telling them about filing fees. I'm telling them about newspaper advertising now. So I think if everything is on paper and they can go back and look at it later, I think that would be extraordinarily helpful. And even if they don't understand this graphic at first, they can maybe look at it, because there is a lot of information on this graphic, and all it's great, all the information is, as I said, it's phenomenally well done. But if they can go back and look at this later and say, oh, that's what he was talking about, I think that would be helpful. The more that they have in their hand later to look at, rather than just me throwing word salads at them.
Sure, yeah.
I think would be beneficial to everybody, petitioners, board, me.
Okay, thank you.
I like the visual. I think people, a lot of people respond, that works so much better. This chart here and this graph and these numbers here work so much better for me than just text. It kind of shows what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Because like you say, Gordon, a lot of people, they don't even know terms like setback and
No,
things like that.
and they shouldn't. They
No,
really shouldn't.
we can't presume. It's overwhelming for them, really.
right, yeah, and
It's-
again, by the time they
Yeah,
come here and talk
excuse
to
me,
us.
can I just say what, we didn't, we didn't ask them to come in looking for these various things they look for. They're the ones that want to do it, so,
Well, it's
I don't
being,
want to
it's,
feel sorry for them that they have to
I
fill out
don't, I don't want to feel
foolish
sorry for them
form.
either, but they come in and
I
they're told.
understand, you're the
Yeah.
one who's at the front line, you
And
gotta
I've
deal
had,
with
I've
it.
had to deal with tears,
Yeah.
I've had to deal with insults, I've had to deal with shouting.
No, I
And
understand.
it's, I literally had one lady tell me that, why are you not letting me do this? And I'm like, I,
You can blame it on me.
Yeah, but you know what?
I blame it on the building commissioner.
Yeah, but Gordon, with all due respect, the police deal with this, they deal with the public.
Oh, I understand.
On more critical things.
Oh, no,
And they don't, if you ask them 2 or 3 questions, they'll say, forget it. They'll walk away from you and say, go to court or whatever.
Well,
And I know maybe you can't do that, but maybe you should do that. I don't know.
Well, but I think, because there have been so many times that we as board members have expressed frustration with people not being prepared. And so if having this, right, it's only fair to tell them, these are the legal, guess what? There are legal standards. We have to make legal determinations, and they have to be supported by evidence. We have to make findings. They should know that. They should know what the legal and so if we can communicate it in a way that's hopefully, like I said, more understandable and given to them far in advance before I start reading the definition, at a hearing, I think that will help, hopefully it's going to help the petitioners, but it will also help us get the information that, we need to make these decisions.
I just remember a couple of years ago, maybe several years ago, when we added those 2 questions on to the special permit thing, and I'd say 75% of the time, I'm not satisfied with the
I know,
answers.
you very often will say, look, they didn't even fill out the form.
I've never tested, I'd like to see us deny one because you didn't fill out the application form and go to court and how would a judge rule? He probably ruled it. You don't have any right to request, to have them fill out form, I have the, I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's frustrating that, they can't answer those 2 questions now. I see that there's 4 questions now, so.
Yeah, it's up to them. It's a cabbage, pick one, pick whatever one applies. Or some people say all of them, right? Oh, it's soil conditions, and its shape, and its topography,
Yeah, give a little description of what
Right.
you mean.
Anyway, but yeah, so the short answer to your question, Mr. Ryan, is, yeah, I think it would be helpful if we can incorporate it, as long as it doesn't make it way too long, right? And we don't want to duplicate things. And then, I guess, and run it by the city solicitor. And if, we think it's an improvement, then let's roll it out and see what happens.
When you ask the city solicitor to review it, could you also just put a question at the bottom on what, could the board deny a
If they don't fill out the
relief
form?
based on failure to answer these questions?
I don't think we could, because I think if an applicant comes and makes their case, right, and gives us evidence upon which we can make the findings in the hearing, that's the point of having the hearing. So even if they don't fill out the form, I don't think we could deny it. If they don't fill out the form and then don't give us any evidence at the
Somewhere
hearing.
in 48, it must say we can require a form to begin with.
No, just continue it.
Yeah, right? So let me ask, I don't know where that document lives. I don't know if it's on your system with special font or anything like that, and I'm not trying to create more work for you.
Fine.
But what system did you use to, so, first off,
I think I have a PDF. I think Jack has the
all right,
living
but what
document.
system did you use to create the diagram?
Illustration? The illustration, you mean?
Yeah,
Adobe Illustrator.
Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so we don't, I don't
That's actually my
imagine.
designer did that. I mean, she's the one that
Okay,
actually.
and so I'm just trying to figure out if, like, going forward, right, no offense, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, then how are we gonna, who's gonna control this document? Can we edit it in the future?
I mean, I could give Gordon the source files as long as someone has that application. They can.
I know, I don't know if anybody has Adobe Illustrator.
Well,
we'll cross that bridge when we come to
It's
it.
a common,
I'm sure I could, if I can't figure it out, I can ask one of the IT guys.
Okay,
to-
and
to
then
help, 'cause
the
they're-
form
they're-
itself, no.
that,
The form itself, is that a Word document, or is that some
no,
other?
that's, it's another Adobe product, InDesign. But again, I can give the
Because
source.
Gordon, for better or worse, is going to need to be the custodian of these documents, so.
Worst case, you have the PDFs, so you could always
Right.
take the PDF and run with that if you had to.
All right, so,
But yeah, I'll get them the source files when it's finalized.
okay, so could I ask, and I'll email you because these are just Word documents. I'll
Yeah, that'd
email
be
them
great.
to you. Okay.
Yep.
All right, anything else?
I
you
just
think we should
want
do?
to say, I like both of them, and if we could maybe work on it the next couple of months or whatever, and get some input maybe from the city solicitor as well. I think the main thing is to steer people into the discussion of what is the legal hardships, the soil conditions, the shape, the topography, but instead of them saying that, well, now I got a new dog, you could jump a
Right,
4-foot,
exactly.
3-foot fence,
That's-
or I don't like the neighbors, so
The dog is the one we hear most often.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
it
true.
is, and-
More often than the kids.
and I think this helps steer them into the argument.
And I
Where they should be.
specifically tell people in my spiel that because you want to keep your dog in your yard, because you want to keep your kids in your yard is not a hardship. And 50% of them, well, I got a dog. It's,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay.
Understood.
But, it's what people can relate to. It's nobody knows, topography, soil conditions,
Right.
shape of the lot. I mean, people should understand shape of the lot. I try and tell them, if you have a swamp in your backyard, or if you have ledge and you can't, build there, that
Move it.
would be, but by that time, I mean, some of them are tuned out already.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You are, because it's got to be information overload. So,
And I can tell, always. I can always tell when they start to.
all right. All right, so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I'll run this by the city's,
Let's wait till it's incorporated then. All right, and so then the last item on our agenda is any other matter that may be legally before the board. I'm not aware of anything, so. So I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Did you pick a meeting?
Yeah, we did. It's the 21st, February 21st?
Yeah.
I heard so moved.
So
Is there a
moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
All right, we are adjourned until February 21st.